questions. I'll come and mess with you guys afterwards if you're still there.
Thank you, Mr.
I yield back.
Mr. Steube.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. President Trump's tax cuts undeniably sparked significant economic growth. The TCJA dramatically increased the net worth of Americans, especially low-income and middle-income families. In 2018 and 2019, low-income families increased their net worth by 37%, and the net worth of middle-income families skyrocketed by 40%. With many of the TCJA provisions expiring after this year, it's imperative that Congress act this year to ensure that we continue pro-growth policies that help American families. In my district, the consequences of inaction would be devastating. My constituents, on average, would experience a 24% tax increase if the TCJA is allowed to expire. Meanwhile, over 55,000 small businesses in my district alone would be hit with a 43.4% tax rate. The expiration of TCJA would result in small businesses closing, jobs lost, and American families suffering, just so the government can take more of their hard-earned money. The good news is that Congress can avoid such economic catastrophes by extending and making permanent TCJA provisions like the individual rate cuts and the 199A qualified business income deduction, which helps small businesses compete and provide jobs for millions of Americans. Moreover, Congress must end the immoral death tax once and for all. It is fundamentally unjust that the federal government claims a right to the property of taxpayers just because they die. This immoral provision of our tax code has hurt family farmers for far too long. Unless we act, millions of family-owned farms will be subject to even more taxes. This time, Congress needs to finish the job and deliver a final death blow to the death tax. Ms. Couch, I'd like to start with you. As an owner of a small business that also services hundreds of other small businesses, can you please tell us how 199A has a real-world impact for your employees and customers?
Yes, thank you for your question. So 199A has really been wonderful tax relief for true small business owners. My typical client earns gross revenue under $3 million a year, employs 10 or less employees. So we're talking about coffee shops, we're talking about ice cream shops, restaurants, professional service business owners, the real heartbeat of the American economy. And I have seen 199A have the greatest impact on that segment of business owners, more so than any other form of tax relief in my 21 years in practice. So it provides it frees up cash flow to reinvest in employees, to reinvest in equipment and software. And as mentioned earlier, I think that it really provides a little bit of cash flow to give back to the community, to sponsor T-ball teams, to be there for PTOs and things like that, which really is very impactful when you're such a strong advocate for your community as a small business owner.
And if 199A were allowed to expire, how would your businesses and clients be forced to respond?
If 199A expires, it will feel like a tax increase on small business owners instead of a sunset of a tax deduction. And so what you will see as a result of that is the inability to provide raises, the inability to invest in new equipment, the inability to really R&D and different things of that nature that is so crucial when you own a small business. And quite frankly, I think that it will cost some small business owners their businesses. I think it is that impactful.
And Ms. Gallagher, in your testimony, you note that IRS statistics do not reflect the difficulties faced by family businesses being forced into fire sale situations by the death tax. You mentioned that this often results in family-run businesses being acquired by larger corporations. How does this affect local communities, and are employees of these family businesses impacted?
Yes, they're definitely impacted, and I have seen firsthand businesses having to succumb to multinational corporations or private equity because they simply cannot afford to pay the death tax. It has impacted the communities that I've seen by the lowering of jobs and just general economic growth within the community. Some of those companies have purchased our businesses and taken the work elsewhere out of the community altogether. I too have seen an impact on the community, on numbers, dollars being contributed back to the community in terms of high school football sponsorships and any type of community event you can think of has decreased considerably. If I could just add one quick thing on the 199A to your testimony, I think it's important to note that 199A has impacted the small businesses and middle class more than any of the businesses in this country. We talk about the large businesses or the wealthy or the high income, and I can firsthand tell you it does not impact them as greatly because frankly, many of them don't even qualify for it. If you think about it, some of the highest income businesses, doctors, lawyers, CPAs, engineers, service businesses, don't even qualify for this. And there are significant guardrails and limitations in place to make sure that if a high-income individual is going to qualify, they are absolutely required to invest in their employees and infrastructure and equipment to even qualify. So I would just like to make sure it's on the record that 199A is the most impactful for the small businesses and the working families who run them.
Thank you all for being here today. My time's expired.
Thank you, Ms.